Welcome back. We here in New Jersey and across the nation have been inundated, bombarded with a seemingly endless onslaught of negativity. And can you blame it? Well, the news has sounded like a doomsday thesaurus with an infinite number of ways to say just how bad things are right now. It's a lot for anyone to absorb, especially our children. So how do you teach them financial right from wrong? Here now with some tips to teach kids money smart is Ed Mendlowitz, CPA with Witham Smith and Brown in New Brunswick. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks a lot.
This is really a rough topic, and it's one I think that a lot of parents are reluctant to get into, especially if they're having some problems of their own right now and they just don't know how to explain it to their kids calmly and rationally and in a way that makes sense. So does the recession, in your opinion, does it make it easier or harder to talk to kids about money?
It actually makes it easier to talk to the kids. It's a harder subject. It's more harried, but it's easier because everybody's talking about money. You can't turn on television now without hearing about the economy. So you sit down with your kids and you explain to them the economy is doing bad. We're not the economy. We're one family. We have an income. Sometimes we have to cut back on what we spend, but everything's going to be okay, and we're never not going to have food. You're never not going to have your toys or whatever the kid does, and you just calm them down. If you ignore it, then the kids hear about this stuff. When you listen to the news now, it's like every day is a bigger disaster than the day before. So they start worrying about it. So you just calm them down. Then it becomes a non-issue for them.
What about in school, for instance? What should teachers be doing?
Teachers should be teaching the children a little bit about the economy, about sort of things we said, how the economy works, but on a level that the kid can relate to. If a kid goes to a toy store and the toy store closes up, you explain why the toy store closed up. You don't tell them the retail sales are down 4.2% this month. So everything gets related to the kid at his level. If you like to go to ball games, you explain why you're going to the Somerset Patriots instead of Yankee Stadium, because it's a lot less expensive, but it's easier to get to and it's closer. So you mention the money, but you also mention the other benefits, which is closer.
All right, so let's tie it all into the allowance, and this is one of those topics that a lot of parents struggle with. They don't know how early to start giving kids an allowance, how much to give, how often to give. So what's your advice?
Well, when the kid first starts asking for an allowance, that's the time to start thinking about it. What I did with my children, and I still recommend it to people, is give the kids a test. Now, you give them the allowance if they actually going to spend their own money. If they're 3 years old, they don't need an allowance. If they're 7, they would probably need an allowance. So you give them a test to see that they know how to make change. You don't give them a written, 4-page written test, but you ask them, if you have $1 and you want to buy something that's 59 cents, how much change do you get? So you give them some tests like that, and you relate it to what they're actually going to be doing. But most kids are not going to pass it the first time, which is good, because you want to make them earn it. And then when they start getting the allowance, that has to be paid every week on time. And when you say you're going to do it, don't give an allowance and then haphazardly give it to them on Friday afternoon, and then you give it to them on Sunday afternoon another time.
All right, so how do you factor in interest? How do you get a kid interested in interest? It's one of those, I don't know, answers. How do you relate interest rates to a child?
Well, probably not. If a kid's 6 or 7, you're not going to relate it. At some point, when a kid gets an allowance, it should be large enough so he could save an amount of money. How much he saves, if you give him $2 a week, if he saves 50 cents, obviously, that's a big part of it. I don't know what kids get nowadays as allowances. I have a feeling they get a lot more. I'll tell you, when my son was in college, one of my sons, I had to send him money. And one time I sent them a letter, "Dear son, here's the $20 you asked for. P.S. 20 is spelled with 1 0, not 2 zeros."
All right, so you know what? Let's talk about charity very quickly, because it's nice to teach kids to save, but we also want to teach about charity a little bit.
I actually think it's more important to teach them about charity than to teach them to save. They can only save when they start earning enough money, but they could give charity, they could give 10 cents. To charity. You can't give 10 cents in a bank account. If they go to church, get them in the habit of putting something in the box. 10 cents is okay. It relates to each other, but it should be something. It should be their money.
All right, then, there are a couple websites out there that you recommend people go to for some advice. The first one, that's moneymattersnj.com. I believe we have, there it is right there. So what do you like about this website?
That's a fantastic website. You could go to the website, you could put in age groups that you're at, and you could actually find any kind of articles and tips and information about how to introduce your kids to money, how to invest, where to invest, the differences between a money market fund and a savings account, for instance.
The other website, that's 360financialliteracy.org.
Yes, that's actually a national website. The first one, the Money Matters NJ, is maintained by the New Jersey Society of CPAs. 360financialliteracy.org is maintained by the American Institute of CPAs. They have unbelievable resources committed to that. When I have questions, if I want a quick answer to something, I go to one of those two websites. But the 360 one is much more in depth, covers much more phases of life. They could take you from the birth to the retirement.
Ed, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for all the information. We appreciate it. And that was Ed Mendlowitz from Witham Smith and Brown in New Brunswick. If you have any questions or comments, send them to me at itsyourmoney@news12.com.